Today we are continuing our journey of the hypnotic language. As you might know, this channel is about personal development. And the first question you might have is, why are we bothering ourselves with hypnotic language? How is it related to personal development? There are two reasons, actually. One being that it is a part of communication. You may not be aware of hypnotic languages, inductions, and mostly these things are used in commercials or advertisements that you are not aware of that might be influencing you in an unwanted way. And I think it's crucial that you are aware of these. But on the flip side, you might also be able to use it yourself and become a more effective communicator. This does not mean that you need to manipulate people in any way, shape, or form. But you can say this for a lot of different things, right? If you're a great actor, you can fool people, but you can also use that in order to give a very convincing speech. So the way that you use the technique is completely up to you. I just find it incredibly interesting and just nice to know how our brain works. And the second reason might be more indirect, but I find it maybe more profound. So if you are not looking to use these techniques in your day-to-day interactions, one thing that it does teach you is how your unconscious and subconscious mind works and how you can create, once you mastered all the techniques, your own specified guided meditation routine. So you could record yourself guiding yourself deeper and deeper into your unconscious mind, and then basically recoding the programs that are running in your unconscious. So I'm already kind of making the connection between hypnotic language, your unconscious mind, and coding. I think this is a really good analogy because as many, I would say mainly Jungian psychologists would also say, there are certain programs that are running in your unconscious mind that you are unconscious of that have an effect on how you act most of the time unaware and unwantedly in your day-to-day life. And if you do journaling, any kind of shadow work, you might start to become aware of these, but it can still be quite tricky to actually make changes there. It takes a lot of work, a lot of reflection. And in order to understand this whole landscape, and in order to directly reprogram your mind, as strange as it may sound, you can use basically self-hypnosis or guided meditation if you wish. So these were the two reasons why I think that this is actually super important. There are 5 steps that I want to highlight in this video, 5 points, which will give you the tools in order to create your own guided meditation. Let that be the first goal of this research if you want. So I want to go through the steps, the building blocks, in order to create your own guided meditation for your own purpose. You can fine-tune it whichever way you like. So the first step, or the first building block that you can use, is called inductions. Something that you also very commonly see that it is used in stories. If someone tells you a story itself is an induction. And I really love to take an example of an old translation of old Turkish stories that I read, where I found that the introduction of these stories usually is a kind of mini story. Something that repeatedly happens is the story starts with a person who goes on a trip to a country far away and there finds a book and then starts reading the actual story that the story is about. And what this signals is that this is not actually about it's not a historical event. It already signals unconsciously to you that this is a story about your unconscious mind, a symbolic story, and it already bypasses some of your critical factors. And obviously, we like that in a story because it is symbolic and tells us a bit more about morality and different things that are not exact historic events. And it's also something that you can see in the story of Bluebeard that I touched upon before. If you haven't watched that video, I read the story, give a short breakdown of what happens, and then there's a second video where I deep dive into what happens in that story. That story exactly also starts with an introduction that is basically like some person who lives there heard a story about this and that, and then the story starts. So it tells you that you're going a level deeper. This is basically what an induction is, and you can use that in your own stories, or if you want to convince people, if you want to convince yourself, you can create this narrative where you read something in a book, or you talk to a friend who read in the newspaper, these kind of things that takes it already, like the credibility and the criticality of whatever comes next is way lower. So people just listen and are more open to accept what is being said. And so are you. The second technique is piggybacking, which is very interesting, how the brain works. Again, if you go back to the concept of the guard standing at the gate of your consciousness, and there are a lot of people coming in, maybe people with cards that come in regularly, and some people that look a little bit strange that he has to check. Piggybacking basically means that you take a statement that is already common knowledge or very, very plausible, maybe even 100% correct, and you connect that to something that is a bit more suggestive, a bit less plausible, but because you connect it with words, for instance, like because or that's why, there is a smaller criticality there. So it's being taken along with the thing that's already true. I will make a video dedicated to this. So I have prepared a video that will also be a short, where I want to introduce this concept and give a very clear example. But you can imagine, like, if there's a trader who comes into the village every week, and the guard already knows that trader, and he basically always lets him pass because it's like a friend or a common face, and that trader also has a new strange guy on his cart. That guard is way less likely to make a big issue about that person because he knows already the other guy. So that's basically how piggybacking works. Then the third one is called pacing. That has a lot to do with the speed and the tonality of how you say things. So you can create different kinds of environments in people's unconscious mind by talking faster and with a higher voice, and more aggressively, to basically increase their heart rate and increase their focus and sense of urgency. Or you can really slow it down. You can slow your own breathing down. And what you will see is that people will follow that. And that is also connected to the fourth point, which is actually leading. So you're leading the person slowly but surely into a deeper state. So that is something you can do by pacing what you are trying to say. You can lead them deeper, but there are more things that you can do with leading. You can basically lead them by senses and experiences that they can verify themselves. And that is something that is, you can see that these things are all connected to each other. So you can use an induction, piggybacking, pacing, and leading, all of them within the same sentence. And I will also give some examples of that. But a very clear example is, for instance, that if you say, everyone is breathing right now, well, breathing is something that we all do. So that is a statement that is always true. And that is something that people can verify themselves. And then you can connect that with piggybacking, saying, as you breathe, or as you focus on your breathing, you realize that you are becoming more and more calm. So a lot of things happen there. I can already use my voice and my tone to pace. I will become more slower and more articulate in the way that I say this. People can verify that they are breathing. And then because I'm using this piggybacking, I say, and because you are breathing, you can realize that you're becoming more and more relaxed. So it's not the case that the person was already relaxed, but the person is breathing. So it's way more likely to accept that the relaxation part is also happening. And I'm also not saying very strictly that you will be relaxed. I'm saying that you can you realize that you can become more and more relaxed. So, okay, you can become more and more relaxed. That is acceptable. So that goes into or through the gate without the guard noticing anything. And that leading is basically using the subject's own experience to constantly verify and experience that everything that is being said is actually true and is actually happening. So you can also include things like doubt about whether or not it is working. So a very common thing there is to say, and you might realize that your thoughts start to wander off, and then, well, either that has already happened and that person is like, oh yeah, wait, that is actually happening, or once you say it, that person might wonder a little bit, and then you can say, even though your thoughts are wandering off, that is just your conscious mind losing focus. Don't worry about it because your unconscious mind is listening carefully. So these kind of things are very powerful tools to bring the subject or yourself deeper and deeper into a kind of unconscious state. And then the building block, the final step is actually the commanding, or what would be the analogy to coding. We need to dive a little bit deeper into that, because there are different things that you can do with suggestions. You need to think about what you want to suggest to that person or to yourself. But these are basically the 5 building blocks that you need to master in order to create your own model, in order to create your own guided meditation to fix potentially the things that you have uncovered in shadow work. The next video I'm making will be a short about piggybacking, as I discussed. And I also want to explain again what I did, go through all of these building blocks, and then finish it off by giving a full example of some guided meditation for, I would say, something that perhaps I'm struggling with, or if you have a nice suggestion, leave it in the comments, and I can make one specifically for that. Let me know if there's any piece of information that is missing. Like the video if you like the video, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the future videos on this topic. And above all, don't forget to have a great day.